was playing, and this was the judge, and this was the reason why we received that material. But so the players themselves are tracking or writing down what they're doing or how they're advancing their character, and then at periodic moments we will actually enter that into our database, so we have an idea of how many players we have, what kind of character classes we have, what events have been played, numbers, that kind of stuff. We also do a review after every convention we do. And as I was saying, we do a lot of different conventions, a lot of local conventions, practically one a month, and in recent years, several in the spring where we'll be overlapping 2 or 3 in a month even sometimes, with a lot of different judges acting as convention coordinators. So if they have an idea, it's like, hey, we have this local convention, we want Sparks there. If there's qualified judges, they can set up a Sparks program and run it.
What qualifies a judge?
The important things for qualifying a judge, and we've actually listed this out, is they have to basically have played in the module or be familiar with the module in some way, shape, or form. We don't want to send the content to someone who has not played that event, because when you play the event or when you have an opportunity to sit with other people and enjoy that event, the judge is going to be presenting a certain feel to you. If you just read a module and run it as written, it's not going to have that same feel to it. So we always prefer that a judge, to be qualified, is that they've played the event. So they already have one kind of reference frame as to how a judge has run it for them. But obviously, if they're the author or editor for an event, then they know what feel they want to present with that. Even for first-time authors, we require, with the events that they write, we always assign an editor for the event, and the editor in most cases is a member of our council or someone very familiar with the campaign, so they can review the module content, make sure that it's balancing for the campaign. That kind of information comes through. But then if it is a new judge, we will require them to either play test the event, run it at either another convention with a select group or at a game day event. And for all playtest events, we require at least one council member to be there, kind of as oversight to see or make sure that the person has a good grasp of the rules, is familiar with the setting and the campaign itself.
I'm a little confused with how the whole campaign itself works, because the way I'm envisioning it, it's just a series of one-shots. Is that how you really work this? Because all I can see is a group of players coming to a convention, playing this one time. Do you get players that come back?
Yes. The content that we have is that each individual module that we have is played one time by one player, I should say that player's character, because I'll get into a new system that we came up with a couple of years ago that's still in testing phase, which is our replay system. But when you say you show up and you play one time and you never come back, you got to understand we have 250 events. If you showed up now, you could play every convention we have, every slot we have for years on end and not play all the content we have. I've been with the campaign since the beginning with my character and have played all of those events. When a new event comes out, I play in that event. We also, with the timeline, as you were getting into before, you don't have to play the modules in order. So you show up at a convention, you could play every slot, and you could play number 190, and then you could go back and play number 5. And there's a lot of flexibility you have to have as a judge to be able to remind players of where they are in the timeline, where once you enter the content of that module, information that may come up in like a sequel to that event, the player doesn't have access to that. So we let them know that drawing upon that information or utilizing something like that, it would be a metagaming aspect, and that's frowned upon. But you can play these modules out of order. Now, there are some with like multiple round events where you have to play them in order, A, then B, then C, for specific reasons. But we have players that have joined 5-6 years ago, and they still have hundreds of modules to play. what we encourage is if they get involved with our community, they can actually go online, and when we tell them at our Yahoo group site, hey, we're going to be at this convention coming up in a month, who's going and what do you want to play? They can actually send in a list and say, hey, I haven't played these modules. Put these on the schedule for me. And we'll do that. We'll be flexible and get them on the schedule. We appreciate that kind of feedback. We like it when the players let us know what they want to play. We don't want to schedule an event at a convention, and we put it on there because we feel somebody wants to play it. And we learned that everyone who's going to that convention has already played that one event, and so they don't want to, so no one's available to really play that again. So we actually try to target specifically events that players are requesting at these conventions. And as I had mentioned before, a system that we came up with a couple of years ago, one of our players actually wanted to be able to basically retry or replay an event. And when you play an event, you get a certain amount of character experience from that. You get your character points. You get whatever's in that module. Your character might be growing or gaining something, contacts or equipment or whatever from that content. So we have set that the same player cannot run the same character through events, but if they have a second character, say you played it one time as a scoundrel, now you want to try and see how it plays as a force user, some of the events are replayable. And I say some because we give that choice to the authors of the event. Some of the content, if it's all like a ruse or an ambush or some kind of mind game is being played, and the author does not feel that the player could quite realistically get into the same feel a second time through, that material content would not be available as replay. Currently, about 50% of our modules are actually even replayable. So if you made up a second character, made up a third character, whatever, you could actually sit down and play that content again as a different character.
How do you prevent metagaming in a replay situation?
With this system that we have right now, it's still under review. It's been under review for just about a year and a half. It's going to be reviewed again at Gen Con. And that's one of the things we actually have is we actually have a small evaluation form. When someone's replaying a module, the judge fills out one, and all the players at the table fill out one, and it's a quick, do you feel that people were metagaming 1 through 10? Do you have any comments, that kind of thing? Would you play again? Did you enjoy playing this event with this replay aspect going on? It's been received very well. Most of the comments we've got is that it's actually, you can see the person who's doing the replay sometimes actively going out of their way not to metagame. We have given judges authority to handle metagaming at the table to the best of their ability, basically calling the player on it, say, hey, I believe you're metagaming there, you want to tone that down. Basically, with anything, it could be metagamed even if it's the first time through. If they've heard something about this module, I want to play in that module because I hear there's some piece of equipment you can get. I want to play in that module because I hear there's a lot of credits that you can earn. As I said, we try to frown at any kind of obvious metagaming and that's going on at the table. And we'll pretty much call the player on it and let them know, hey, you're metagaming, go ahead, cut it out, that kind of thing.
Let me ask for an elaboration on this process of playing in a Sparks event or campaign. If I'm understanding you correctly, and I can be pretty slow sometimes, so you have to work with me, especially when I've been drinking. Now, I've been drinking, just for our listeners, I haven't been drinking right now. That was the night before. So Don's a little bit on the slow uptake this morning. If somebody wanted to play in a Sparks adventure, they got the list of all the adventures you guys got and went, wow, 102, 103, 104, look, awesome. I want to play in those. The process the person would have to go through is, one, they would have to be a part of Sparks or have a Sparks character, all right, that was approved by the council or whomever. They would have to contact the council and say, look, I'm interested in 101, 102, 103. And the council would go, that's great. If you want to play in that, you have to come to either this convention or this live event. Those are your only options. Is that pretty much how I understand it?
Not really. what you're talking about is if the players are specifically trying to request a specific module. But ultimately, to play in Sparks, all you got to do is show up. You don't actually have to join. If you're at one of these conventions, if you're at Gen Con, we run about 70 events at Gen Con. And you show up, we have what we call our template or character pack, where we do request that you pick one of these templates. So if you show up and you have an idea of what you want to play, it's a good chance that one of the 15 character or templates in the template pack will match what you want to do. We try to provide somebody with at least high values in any one of the stats.
Sure.
So if someone shows up, you pass these out, you pick one. We help them customize them. How do you make your smuggler different from someone else's smuggler? How do you make your gambler different than somebody else's gambler? And we work with them to figure out their character. But also just so if you're new to the system and don't understand really what you're choosing or what some of the skills mean, we give kind of a little primer on there. But we also allow you to make changes. You can actually scrap your entire idea of what you wanted to do and change to something else if you desire to. Say, for instance, somebody else took the template that you really wanted to play, or you didn't understand what that skill was, and that's the skill you really should have chosen. Well, we allow the players to actually modify any aspect of their character and maintain the experience that they gained from the first time through up until the 8th time they play. So we let you get some gameplay under your belt. You show up, we're going to get you going as quick as possible. We don't want to force you into something that you might not be enjoying to play later because you didn't understand something. So we let them know that. We say, go ahead and make something, play, enjoy it, and then afterwards, if you see that you wanted to do something a little different, the judges will help you change what you want. But ultimately, once you show up, you make a character, you play, and then you have so many events, as I said, up until the 8th event you play, to make any changes you want. After that point, that character is pretty much established and locked in, but you could always start a second character. We have a death and retirement system where if your character dies, you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning. You basically gain a portion of experience based on how advanced your character was, because with that new character you're making up from death and retirement, that character, if he gets any of the effect from any of those modules that he's played, he can't play in those modules again. And so we understand that they're basically be behind the curve some. So we give them kind of a jump start. But once they show up and they pick a character and they play, they have time to modify it. And then at that point, you can show up to all the events and play throughout that convention. You can show up to other conventions and continue to play. We do ask that at some point you would turn your character in so that we could put it in the system and track what people have played and what they've done. But we give everyone a new player information sheet, which is basically how to get hold of us online through our Yahoo group site or even our wiki site. Contact the council members, and if they have any questions. That Yahoo group site, if you choose to join that, then you have that avenue of, for upcoming conventions, the judges or the convention coordinator will basically say, hey, we're running this event here. What do you guys want to play? And at that point, you can chime in or you don't have to. There are a lot of people that opt not to chime in. So if they're going to go to the convention and they didn't chime in as to what they want to play, when they show up, they'll have to find out what event was scheduled and see if there's something they can play. We appreciate the feedback for those that do that, because then we can guarantee that there will be an event there for you to play.
Sounds like a fairly complex system. So again, just so that we're clear, the only way that you're going to play a Sparks adventure is pretty much at either a convention or a live event, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if I were a game master and I was like looking through the Sparks playbook, basically, and I was like, okay, I think my characters would enjoy, again, coming back to the adventure, say 101, 102, 103. If I were to contact Sparks and say, hey, look, I've got a crew here, I've got some people, we'd really like to run these adventures. Basically, Sparks would say no. Correct?
That's correct.
I'm a little astonished at that, honestly. Why not make that content available?
Well, the biggest thing is the authors that wrote those events have given those events over to Sparks, and we have a certain ethical obligation to honor those offers.